fastest growing shows out there right now, and I have all of you to thank for that. You might be listening to us on the FM/AM dial, KSHP, of course, the Occupy Democrats network page, Twitter page, X, I guess as they call it now, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok. We are everywhere, and we're so appreciative that you make us a part of your day, of your afternoon, depending on where you live. And we have a big show lined up for you today. A lot to get to, a lot to talk about. The news cycle just continues. We ask that you click $5 on that Occupy Democrats Facebook page, a cup of coffee, and you're supporting what we do here. Also, check out my YouTube page at PTL Radio Show. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we're going to be speaking to Clark County Commissioner Michael Naft. He's going to be joining us in studio. Knows a lot about law and passing laws, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different issues, not just on the local front, but the national front. The situation in Israel, abortion, guns, policing, so much to get to with Michael Naft as he's going to be joining us in studio here in just a few minutes. So I wanted to start off the show today because I had mentioned yesterday that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was considering two candidates to be his vice president. One who used to jump off the top rope, Jesse Ventura, who again is a conspiracy theorist moron, and Aaron Rodgers, who's a meathead. Great football player, great quarterback, great career. Just a despicable person as far as I'm concerned. And there's a story that CNN has put out, and some of you might say, oh, come on, CNN, fake news, if you're a Trumper. But I have a lot of respect for a lot of reporters at CNN, certainly Jake Tapper being one of them. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes Aaron Rodgers seriously. We'll get to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a moment. But there is a story that's come out that apparently Aaron Rodgers, years back, 2012, 2013, after the Sandy Hook shooting, said that it was an inside job and those were child actors and not real people. So Jake Tapper will give you the story here. And this is somebody, keep in mind, that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is seriously considering to be his vice presidential running mate.
In 2013, when CNN's Pamela Brown was covering the Kentucky Derby, she was introduced to Rodgers. Hearing that she was a journalist at CNN, Rodgers began attacking the news media for, quote, covering up important stories. Rodgers then brought up the Sandy Hook shooting and said the news media was intentionally ignoring that the shooting wasn't real, that it was a government inside job. I remind you, the shooting, of course, was very real, very tragic. 20 children and 6 adults were murdered that day. When Pamela Brown asked Aaron Rodgers for evidence of what he was talking about, Rodgers then began sharing various theories that have been disproven numerous times by evidence. Rodgers falsely claimed to Pamela Brown that there were men in black in the woods by the school, and he asked if she thought that was odd. Brown says that she found the entire encounter disturbing.
Pamela Brown is somebody that I have a lot of respect for. She hasn't had any controversies. She's a really good journalist, a really good reporter. She's been around for a very long time. She's very good at what she does, and a lot of people have a ton of respect for her. Aaron Rodgers has a history of lying. I've been immunized, just saying ridiculous things about Jimmy Kimmel possibly being on Epstein Island. Aaron Rodgers has no credibility, and he's a conspiracy theorist. So, yes, I absolutely believe her when it comes to this story. Now, of course, Aaron Rodgers took to X today, and he said, I'm on the record saying in the past what happened at Sandy Hook was an absolute tragedy. Okay, so what? So you said it was an absolute tragedy. That doesn't mean this story's fake. He claims that I've never been of the opinion that the events did not take place. Again, I hope that we learn from this and other tragedies to identify the signs that will allow us to prevent unnecessary loss of life. My thoughts and prayers continue to remain with the families affected, along with the entire Sandy Hook community. Aaron Rodgers is a liar. I don't believe him one bit. This is not out of the realm of possibility that Aaron Rodgers most likely told this CNN reporter that it was an inside job. I absolutely believe her. This is the kind of person that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is considering to be his vice president. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because the types of people that say things like this can hurt people. Alex Jones, what he did to those families. Can you imagine losing your 8-year-old child and then having people coming up to you while you never get over the loss of your son or your daughter saying that it didn't happen and your child was an actor and the shooting didn't happen and you're all actors. Can you imagine the hurt and the pain and the anger you would feel at the hands of some despicable human being in Alex Jones? So while there is something called freedom of speech, that pertains to the government. There are consequences for your words. That's why Alex Jones filed for bankruptcy. And, you know, when Aaron Rodgers makes a claim that Jimmy Kimmel should be worried because he might be on the list of Epstein Island, and we know that not only was Jimmy Kimmel not on the list, he never met Jeffrey Epstein, and that was a blatant lie. Your words have consequences. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. should know that better than anybody. With his anti-vaccine rhetoric and the things he said in other countries that have cost people lives. Now, it's no shocker that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says nothing but nice things about Aaron Rodgers when he was asked about this yesterday. Have a listen.
And we know that Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the New York Jets, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, is a prominent name in that. Why?
Well, he's one of the people that we've talked to. I really like Aaron because, our appeal is to young people. We're trying to make sure that young people are participating in the political process, that they have hope for America. We want somebody, the people who have run up the $34 trillion debt, which they're dumping on that generation, are all older people. And we want somebody young who's going to look out for that generation. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers is battle tested. He's stood up. He's been hammered by the press, stood up for things he believes in. I like that part of his character. He's a critical thinker, and
He's a critical thinker, and he stood up for what he believes in. So according to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if you stand up for what you believe in and you say, I don't know, the Holocaust didn't happen, does that mean you have strong convictions? Does that mean you would respect somebody like that? Aaron Rodgers is a meathead. He's not very intelligent. He says a lot of stupid things. And when he was asked on a podium if he was vaccinated, yes, I've been immunized. He put everybody's health at risk. He's selfish. He's a liar. And he says reckless things. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to give this guy respect because he can throw a football. Guess what? Just because you can throw a football, that means you're a good football player, perhaps a really good athlete. Doesn't mean you're intelligent. Doesn't mean you should be the vice president. And you think Aaron Rodgers knows anything about the deficit? You think Aaron Rodgers knows anything about foreign policy? You think Aaron Rodgers knows anything about real medicine? No more than probably Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does with his conspiracy theories.
That part of his character, he's a critical thinker, and I think we need that at the time, as the rise of AI. We need people who understand that you cannot always trust authority. Just because somebody's in charge, it doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth, and we want somebody who's going to critically examine. My father used to say, one of the duties of living as a citizen in a democracy is to maintain a constant posture of skepticism toward authority. And I think Aaron's shown that. He's also somebody who I think will help me get the country healthy again. Yep. He's 40 years old. He's focused on his own health. He's very aware of health issues, and that's one of the things that's one of the key parts of my agenda.
It's one of the key parts of his agenda. He's putting credibility to somebody who has no credibility. If you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, the football player, that is a different conversation. The guy who gets paid to go on podcasts and radio shows, who makes claims about the vaccines that are constantly not true. The guy you want to give credibility to is the guy who I believe said that the Sandy Hook shooting didn't happen and these kids who died are actors. Aaron Rodgers is no better than Alex Jones. The only difference being is that Alex Jones isn't much of an athlete. He's like 300 pounds of chewed bubble gum. This is really important because there are people out there that have conspiracy theories, but they don't necessarily hurt people, right? I mean, I would argue that Kyrie Irving saying that the earth is flat is very stupid and very ignorant. But I would be willing to bet most people don't believe it, and it's not really going to harm anybody. But when Aaron Rodgers says that Jimmy Kimmel is basically a pedophile, because that's really what he said, when you say you're on the Epstein Island list, and that you spend a lot of time with Jeffrey Epstein, that's really what you're saying, is that Jimmy Kimmel is attracted to young children and possibly raped young children. There's nothing funny about that. That's defamation. When you lie on a podium and you're knowingly lying, saying that you were vaccinated, yes, I've been immunized, regardless of what your opinions are on the vaccines, regardless of what your opinions are on the NFL and the rules that they implemented, you lied. You were in front of the cameras and you lied. Aaron Rodgers has zero medical experience. Now, going back to what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, it's okay to challenge people. Heck, I do it on this show every day. It's okay sometimes not to believe what you hear. I do it on this show every day. But when you blatantly lie and you say things that are not true, sometimes your words have consequences and it can hurt people. It's exactly what Aaron Rodgers has done in the past, and it's exactly what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. continues to do. And what a shocker, he uses his father's name again, because that's what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does, and that's what he continues to do. His sister and so many members of his immediate family not only have not condoned his campaign and what he's doing, but they've openly endorsed Joe Biden. What does that say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? Now, listen, if it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. versus Donald Trump, which it's not going to be, but if it was, I would hold my tongue and I would vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But the bar is very, very low, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if a guy like a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., or any candidate for that matter, wants to appeal to younger voters, then why don't you find somebody that isn't a conspiracy theorist? Aaron Rodgers is not going to be, in my opinion, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s running mate. Why? Well, first of all, he's an NFL football player, and he has contractual obligations. I heard a joke yesterday, which I repeated, which was, now, how many bad teams can Aaron Rodgers be on? He's already on the Jets, and he's on the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. team. 2 bad teams, in my personal opinion. Funny joke, but it's true. How can you take Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s candidacy seriously? How? When you decide to pick people, or possibly pick people, like an Aaron Rodgers or a Jesse the Body Ventura, how on earth can you take that person's candidacy seriously? And listen, I know people in this town, and I know some very prominent people that have a lot of money that are supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't understand why. I can tell you one thing for sure. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not hurting Joe Biden. He's going to hurt Donald Trump. Why? You have a lot of people on the far right, the Steve Bannons of the world, the Charlie Kirks of the world, that were big supporters of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why is that? Why are so many people on the fringe right? I've been to some of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s speeches here. I've had some opportunities to talk to him. I talked to him on a one-on-one basis. I talked to him in a media scrum. And I can tell you there are a lot of people on the fringe right, most of them, not all of them, but most of them Donald Trump supporters that are on board with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why is that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he's a conspiracy theorist. And rarely does he ever criticize Donald Trump at all. He'll criticize Joe Biden. Rarely will he criticize Donald Trump. He wants that vote. And taking those votes away from Donald Trump, which I think he will, he'll take away some of those votes, is only going to help Joe Biden. Do I think Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a serious candidate? No, I don't. I do not. And that has nothing to do with his voice. That certainly doesn't help, and that's not his fault. But it has nothing to do with his voice. It has nothing to do with what his last name is. It has everything to do with what comes out of his mouth. I was at a few speeches in Vegas where 90% of those speeches, 90%, were about the vaccines. A lot of problems facing the American people today. The border being one of them. People are concerned about the border, rightfully so. I don't attack people for being concerned about the border. I have a problem with people that want to blame it all on Joe Biden. But we've had issues at the border for years and years, and I'm not going to play the game of, Brian, hundreds of thousands of more, undocumented immigrants are crossing the border because of Joe Biden's policies. Well, okay, where were you under the Trump administration? Trump could have shut down the border. Millions of people that were undocumented came in. You can make the argument that more people are coming in illegally now, but Donald Trump had the authority to shut down the border. Why didn't he do it? Point being is that this is an issue that we've had in this country for decades and decades and decades. A lot of people are concerned about the border. Again, don't blame them. I'm concerned as well. A lot of gun violence in this country. We have to do something about it. A lot of people are worried about their health care. A lot of people are worried about their jobs, even though the unemployment rate is way down and wages are going up. A lot of people are worried about crime. And this isn't just a Democrat problem. It's a Republican problem as well. And if you look at the red states out there, murders are way up. The serious of crimes, not stealing some bubble gum, the serious crimes like murder, way up in red states. Do I just blame Republicans for that? Absolutely not. I don't play that game. But the country has been moving in the right direction. Is Joe Biden perfect? No, he's not. But I gave out the stats yesterday. The unemployment numbers, the job growth, the NASDAQ, inflation dropping down, gas prices dropping down. The country has been moving in the right direction for the last couple of years. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But people always want to come up with an excuse when I give out a stat and when I give out a number. The proof is, and this is evident and it's fact, the unemployment is lower now than it was before the pandemic when Donald Trump was president. So you can't make that argument either. We have a lot of problems in this country. I want serious people trying to fix the problems. Donald Trump is not a serious person. He's a reality TV star who took a $500 million company from his dad and has so many businesses that have filed for bankruptcy, thousands of civil lawsuits, a liable rapist, might I add you, who's facing 91 felony counts. If you think Donald Trump wants to make America great again, then you obviously don't know what you're talking about, and you're complicit at a minimum. I want serious candidates in Washington, D.C. And you have Joe Rogan, who has, last I checked, the most listened to podcast on the planet, who said he doesn't want a diverse administration. He doesn't think a diverse administration under Joe Biden is capable of getting things right. He wants an all-white administration because Joe Rogan is a racist turd. This isn't the first time we've heard this from a Joe Rogan type who happens to be a MAGA supporter. Donald Trump had the whitest administration in the history of this country. And we want to hear Joe Rogan say diversity is a bad thing. Well, let me be very clear. Diversity is not a bad thing. Diversity is a good thing. I want somebody's administration to look like what this country looks like. And Joe Biden has done that. And that also doesn't mean that the people in Biden's administration are not capable because they happen to be brown people. That would be a racist thing to say. And that's exactly what Joe Rogan is saying. He's making the case, oh, Joe Biden wants diversity. That's not going to work. What a horrible thing diversity is. These people are saying these things out loud for all of you to hear. It's absurd. And we should take somebody like Aaron Rodgers seriously. We should take somebody like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. seriously. Living off of his last name. Never been in politics before. And I'm not saying that if you've never been a politician before, you can't be a good politician. But Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not the right guy to do it. I can tell you that. Aaron Rodgers and the guy who jumped off the top rope, these are the people that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is seriously contemplating to being his vice presidential running mate. You can say what you want about our vice president today, but I'll tell you this. She's an educated woman. She worked hard in her life to get to where she is, and you'll have some people, disgusting people on the far right, that will, of course, make claims that she's I hate to use this term, but a whore, I've heard before. It's disgusting. It's terrible language. It's disgusting. She is a decent woman with a nice family, has a quality education, You could make the argument that maybe she's not so great in front of the camera, the media. It's a fair criticism that maybe she doesn't resonate well. It's a fair criticism, and I'm willing to have those discussions with anybody. But she's a woman of decency and intelligence, and she's not a conspiracy theorist meathead like Aaron Rodgers. She's qualified. She happens to be a black woman. I applaud that. I think that's great. And you think that Aaron Rodgers would be a good replacement as vice president? Are you kidding me? Can anybody take you seriously if that is the way you think? You know, the bottom line is if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just stopped talking about the vaccines and saying that, COVID, targeted certain races and religions, which is, by the way, absurd. If he stopped talking about medicine because clearly he knows nothing about it, I don't care how many lawsuits he's filed in his life. He's not an infectious disease expert. Heck, he's not even a dentist or an eye doctor. Yeah, Macho Man says I can verify that. I mean, these are the people that we want. And don't get me wrong. I've said this time and time again. I respect the heck out of Joe Biden. I think he's a decent man. I like Joe Biden as a person. I think he's a man of compassion. I respect his wife. Beau Biden is somebody who served this country honorably. I get it. Hunter Biden struggled with addiction. He's done some stupid things in his life. I understand that. Addiction is a very, very serious disease. No matter what it is, drugs, gambling, alcohol, you name it, it's serious. And I feel for those people. Joe Biden is a decent human being. You can disagree with him on policy until the cows come home, and that's fine. I have those conversations with Republicans every single day. Which policies do you think are not working? What are your criticisms of the Biden administration? Don't bring up Hunter Biden. Don't bring up the Biden crime family because there's no evidence of that. That is what I would call a meathead Aaron Rodgers, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. conspiracy theory. Is there anybody out there that would maybe be swayed to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. if Jesse the Body Ventura or Aaron Rodgers is picked as his VP? Is there anybody out there that thinks that that's a good idea? Is there anybody out there that would say, boy, I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers as my vice president than Kamala Harris? Even Mike Pence, for that matter. Is there anybody out there that thinks that way? Aaron Rodgers is not a good guy. He's just not. Jesse Ventura is not a serious candidate. This is another guy who Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is considering picking as his vice president.
Oh, he'll test my strength, but the body will prevail. Mean Gene, let's talk about other stuff. I'll get to this arm wrestling. I'll get to what Hulk Hogan wants to do with the body, and that is break arms with the strongest arm in wrestling.
Oh my, how you carry
The
on.
man is going to get embarrassed, but first I want to say this. You know, very close by here in St. Paul, Minnesota, a few weeks back, the Rolling Stones were in town.
They were.
Good friends of mine. And let me tell you, Mean Gene, and all you people out there, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ron Wood called up the body and says, Body, we need you to bodyguard us. We need you to announce us. So that's what I did. I was the announcer and the head bodyguard for the Rolling Stones.
There you go. There you go. That's the other guy that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is actually considering being his vice presidential running mate. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll open up the phone line, 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-SAVE. Commissioner Michael Naft is going to be joining us in studio next. Certainly going to talk law with him. And a lot of different national topics to discuss with him and some local topics as well. Might even ask him about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So Michael Naft is going to be joining us next. Again, that phone number, 702-221-7283. We'll be back in 90 seconds. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign bot fun account and stay progressive.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yousafzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your People's Choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen, I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran, veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Wynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. A very chilly, cloudy Thursday in Las Vegas for mid-March. Appreciate you guys for joining us. You know, yesterday in studio we had Ed Bernstein, great guest, and talked, with his legal expertise about Trump's issues. I figured maybe we'll take a day off from Donald Trump. Maybe we'll just take one day off from talking about Orange Man, and we'll talk about some other things on the show today. But the guy joining me in studio right now, his name is Michael Naft, Commissioner in District A here, as a Democrat, and there's so many different issues that I want to tackle with Michael. And first of all, Michael, let me say I appreciate you being here. I am a supporter of yours, and I'm glad you made it in studio, and we finally met. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and thank you. I'm sorry I missed Ed Bernstein, my longtime friend.
He's a great
yesterday.
guy.
He's a wonderful man.
Great guy,
good for our community.
And the first time I met him was yesterday. I met him and his beautiful wife, and it was really nice to talk to him. I want to talk to you about some national issues first.
Sure.
and then we'll move on to maybe some local issues. But before I get to that, how long have you been in the political spectrum in your career? Talk to me a little bit about your resume, your career.
Sure. So I've been on the Clark County Commission here in Southern Nevada for 5 years now, going into my 6th. Prior to that, I spent 13 years working for our member of Congress here in Southern Nevada who represents Las Vegas, Congresswoman Dina Titus. I ended my time with her as her district director, running her local congressional office. And somewhat uniquely, I was initially appointed to my role by the man who became governor. He was elected governor, Steve Sisolak, and then had the opportunity to appoint his successor. He appointed me for the balance of his term. So I was there for 2 years and am now in my first 4 years of elected office on the Clark County Commission.
And Congresswoman Dina Titus does this show all the time. She's a very nice lady. I always make her laugh when I go, I'm Dina Titus, because I love her. I just love that down southern accent, you know. But Dina's a lovely lady, and I really do appreciate her coming on. And Steve Sisolak, of course, has done this show before. All right, so you've been doing this for a while. On a general sense, Michael, do you feel like maybe we're more divided politically in 2024 than we've been maybe in our lifetimes? We're around the same age.
Yeah.
I just feel like we're so divided today. Do you feel that way, and why do you think that is?
I think so. I think it is. It's more personal than ever before. I think it never ends. Social media is a huge part of that. It just never ends. You know, when television advertising was predominantly the means of attacking your opponent, it could end at a certain point. Here, it is all the time. It's in your face. It's constant, and the divides are just so strong. It's personality over, frankly, ideology sometimes, and I think that's really a problem.
Working for our former governor, Democrat Steve Sisolak, I'm curious what went through your mind, and I still remember this video, and I've talked to our former governor about this. It made national news, where you had a Trump supporter, a right-wing fringe person, who sees the governor and his family, stalks them, follows them outside, yelling obscenities at them, and it forced the governor at the time to get into his car. Very scary situation. I mean, what went through your mind when you saw that situation?
I think what is most upsetting about it, aside from obviously, I care about anyone who would be the victim of a situation like that, but what is most upsetting is Nevada, unlike almost anywhere else in the United States, is a place where you can come and you can sit down with your governor and get an audience with your governor. You can sit down with your commissioner, your council person, or your mayor, or your legislator. You see them in the grocery store. You see them at your kids' soccer class, soccer programming. We have such a low barrier to entry to get involved in the political system here in Nevada as a whole. And we are such a small community, a tight-knit community in that way. And what's most upsetting about it is events like that, I think, are so damaging to the accessibility issue here. I want to live in a place where people who are elected are approachable and accessible, and you have everyone who lives in this community has an opportunity to engage with them and engage towards them. But when things like that happen, it makes you, someone like our former governor who drove himself around often, who
still does,
who goes to Costco regularly, does all the things that everybody who lives here does. It kind of makes you second guess your ability to do that freely.
I agree, Michael. And listen, that man who did that sadly took his own life several months later. This was a mentally deranged person. But what I think you would agree with me is, our language, our politicians, could be Donald Trump, could be anybody, they have a responsibility with a large platform, because there are crazy people out there that are capable of doing crazy things. Don't give them a reason, right? And that situation was very scary, and it hit home. And we saw what took place on January 6th, and it's just scary. And as Joe Biden said in his State of the Union, there's no place for political violence in politics, right? Thank God the Republicans stood up for that. But it's really, really scary. I want to ask you this.
I was just going to further in furtherance of that. I think what's interesting is just the level at which that vitriol has just expanded. We know about that situation with the governor, but I remember one time, particularly during the pandemic, during some of the most challenging days, and I was at a Trader Joe's right by my house, walking through that Trader Joe's, and I was confronted by somebody. Now, county commission, the way it works here, very few people know their county commissioner necessarily. It's not like you were on TV every single day. It's not, it's a public service role, but not everybody knows their county commissioner.
So you're
But
walking
I'm
into a
walking
store,
through the market, through Trader Joe's, and I'm confronted by somebody in a pretty aggressive way. And I recall the next day we had a county commission meeting, and I go there and I'm telling some of my colleagues about it, thinking that they're going to think, wow, like I did, this was such a rattling experience. And to a T, every single one of them had the exact same experience. And I think you see that almost everyone in office has gone through something like that.
If you don't mind me asking, because I would assume, and tell me if I'm wrong, that this was maybe a Republican MAGA extreme supporter. Most Republicans are good people that would never do something like that, right? We agree on that. But this was, a lunatic that just went up to you? And what did this person start saying?
Well, that's the scary thing. I don't know that it was a lunatic. It was just somebody at the same grocery market that I go to, someone just shopping for their family dinner who was extremely aggravated about particularly the mask policy at that time.
Oh, God.
And that's what that was about.
I can't stand these people, okay? It's a trigger for me. I almost died of COVID. There were people in this county and across the country that were anti-maskers holding rallies. People, by the way, with zero medical expertise, just like the same people who go in front of Target and don't want people going into Target. That's just a can of worms for me. What do you say to somebody like that? When somebody, and I would call that person crazy, by the way, talking to you about masks and all that stuff. What do you say to somebody do you just walk away? Do you smile and say thank you and walk away? Like, what do you do in that situation to be professional?
Well, it's hard because you always want to engage with everybody. That's kind of why I do this job, is because I want to be able to serve the public. I want to be, that is a totally in my mind a reasonable expectation that if somebody sees your elected official anywhere in the public, you can go and sit down and engage them in conversation. It's just when it turns to such an aggressive tone.
It's interesting to me that some of these people, and luckily they're the minority, I think we would agree on that, Michael, they're so angry about putting on a mask, but yet after October 1, they don't want to do anything about gun control, right? They don't want to do anything about guns. In fact, they want to say, let's have more guns because that makes us safer, which obviously is not true, and I do want to talk to you about that. I just do find it interesting that, and again, we're talking about fringe people. Not most Republicans don't think like this, but there is a fringe part of this party today that thinks drag queen reading to kids is the worst thing ever, which, again, is absurd. But yet they don't want to talk about gun control. They don't want to talk about health care. Or if they do, they want to blame Obamacare, and they have no replacement plan, right? I don't understand these people. I don't. And, you were here in Vegas after October 1, the biggest mass shooting in the history of this country. Do you feel like, as the commissioner, Clark County commissioner, do you feel like we have an obsession with our guns in this country and we need to do more?
Well, clearly there is an obsession with guns in this country. I think that's indisputable. And what is so upsetting is when time and time again you have pretty common sense policies that are no pun intended, shot down without any serious regard. Both sides have kind of gone into their bunkers, and you see that particularly on the right, that there is no room for compromise. There's no room for even discussion. It's just a heck no. And that applies to things like that are supported by almost everyone in the public. This isn't the average citizen problem or something that polls negatively with the broader public. This is something that is a problem for a real small slice of the population.
I agree. If you're just joining us, Commissioner Michael Naft, District A here, joining us in studio. And I compliment people like you, and I compliment Metro Police. And, when you think of the 24/7 lifestyle that we have, the alcohol 24/7, I feel pretty safe walking the Strip. I feel pretty safe in these neighborhoods. Yeah, there's some bad patches here and there. But I think for the most part, Vegas is a pretty safe place to be when you consider all the tourism and everything. I think you guys are doing a good job. Why is it you think that, that in other parts of the country that are not these big tourist destinations like Vegas, there's so many bigger issues when it comes to crime?
Yeah. Well, I think you see a lot. One, I think things get covered in a different way than they used to. But there's no doubt retail crime is a huge problem, and it's something I think that has captured people's attention because it's more relatable, right? Everybody goes through a CVS and can see the impact right in front of their face of retail crime, and everybody experiences that costs go up because of the shoplifting that occurs, and that's an aggravation and a frustration for everybody. So I think those types of crimes are more visible in that way. You look at our jurisdiction here, violent crime is down. In fact, we have more fatalities due to road crashes than we do to violent crime in Clark County.
And I know you talk about that on your X page about car crashes, and of course DUI is a problem in any situation. But yeah, that is true. That is interesting, isn't it? Speeding and people not going the speed limit. When I see, and going back to the Henry Ruggs case, the former Raider player who that, of course, sadly made national news, driving 155 miles an hour on Rainbow. I want to ask you about that because I personally feel like if you get a DUI and you injure somebody or kill somebody, I think it should be a longer sentence. That's my personal opinion. Henry Ruggs, on good behavior, is probably going to be out in several years. And I know you have no control over that or that case. I get it. I just feel like in general, if you injure somebody or kill somebody and you're drunk on the road, I think it should be a mandatory sentence of much longer than what it is now. What are your thoughts on that?
There has to be consequences, and consequences do change behaviors. It's really indisputable. And I think that is a good case because it's also one that, frankly, demoralizes both the law enforcement community and others who are involved in the criminal justice system who are doing their best to fulfill their role and their obligation to the community. And then you have events like that happen where the penalty, in some cases it's a loophole. In some cases it's because not everything was done exactly right. But you see something like that where a young woman loses her life and her puppy lose their life.
Horrible.
And the consequences are just so, by comparison, insignificant.
And I hear stories, and I'm sure you've heard these stories as well, of a fourth DUI, a fifth DUI, a sixth DUI. And it's crazy.
Nevada is the most difficult place in the country to have your license revoked. And I think that's
Why?
a problem.
Why?
I think there's there's state policy that protects it. There's also enforcement issues. But a driver's license is a privilege.
Correct.
There's no right that guarantees you the ability to get a restricted license, just like any other. It is, in fact, the only that I can think of, the only restricted license that you don't have to do any kind of continuing education for. You don't have to fulfill other than making sure that your hearing and your eyesight still are strong. There really is no continued education, but yet it's a responsibility that is now taking over 300 lives a year in Nevada and costing $2 billion to the state economy.
As the commissioner in District A here, what can you do?
A lot. I think we can do a lot. I think we're working on it. Some of this takes time. Some of it we've already accomplished. I think it's everything from the way our roads at the beginning of the problem are engineered, designed, and built. You mentioned Rainbow. You should not be able to drive 150 miles or over 100 miles an hour mechanically, physically on a urban road.
Yeah.
Right? There are other cities. Manhattan doesn't have the fatality rate that we have because you can't go that fast. You can't drive 100 miles an hour where people are walking and driving by schools and parks.
Yeah.
So I think it's an engineering problem. For decades, Clark County has been relied on building infrastructure that allows for cars to go as fast, as straight, and as long as humanly possible with as wide lanes as comfortably as possible. So you look at the way designing, engineering, and built happens, and then you sort of follow the problem all the way through to enforcement with our law enforcement community, to the justice system, through our district attorney's office and PDs and the court system. And then you just look at this problem, and the reason why one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it is because not only does it impact every single person in this community, whether you're driving, whether you're passengering, whether you're riding the bus or cycling or walking to and from school or to work, everybody uses our public infrastructure on a daily basis and has personal experience with it. The other is because almost everything I just described happens under the purview of local government, specifically Clark County. We build the roads, design the roads, engineer the roads. We are responsible for funding Metro's budget. We are the fire department. We are the coroner's office. We own UMC and the trauma center where most everybody goes in a tragedy.
Let's talk a little bit about policing, which I guess the two go hand in hand. I don't want to see, and by the way, I think Metro, for the most part, they do a great job. I'm a big fan of our sheriff, Kevin McMahill, who has been on this show multiple times. I think he's a great guy, and he's doing a really good job. And crime, for the most part, is going down, except for carjackings, right? I heard him talk about that a little bit. And listen, one sexual assault is too much, but sexual assaults are down 19.8%. Overall crime went down 9.93%, which is great. Robberies were down 19.4%. Auto thefts are up. They're up in Las Vegas 36%. Why do you think that is?
I wish I had the answer to that, and I would hopefully be closer to a solution for it. But you're right. The overall crime happening in this community is down year over year. Really good thing. A lot of that is sort of environmental, but a lot of it is also the work that Metro is doing. They are doing an extraordinary job. They are continuing to fund COP teams that get into the community, that get to know people in the community. These are community engagement teams. I believe that has a strong impact. And I think that's all a good thing.
No question. I guess this is more of a national question. It doesn't really relate here as much. But you hear what so many people on the far right will say. Democrats are ruining the country. Crime is up in every state run by Democrats. Number one, that's not true. When you look at the stats of the most serious of crimes, which is murder, it's up in just about every red state in the country. But I'm not blaming Republicans for that. Why do you think so many Republicans out there want to blame people like you and say Democrats are ruining the country?
I think it's easy. I think it's easy to do. It's easy, and they've certainly captured that message. I have an opponent right now who has attacked me on the basis of defunding police. Well, I have in the time I've been on the county commission, I have provided everything every sheriff I've worked with has asked for. I've fought for more funds, for specific equipment, for opportunities for officers, for responsible policing in our communities. But it's a lie, and because of the national resonance of it, they'll keep doing it.
You know what? It's so ridiculous, Michael. I have to jump in here and say it's just like when the far right Republicans say Democrats want to take all your guns away. That's also a lie.
Correct.
Are there a few maybe crazy mayors in this country that might be Democrat that do want to defund the police? Well, yes, they're wrong. 99% of Democrats like yourself do not want to defund the police. How can your opponent, blatantly lie and claim a position that you have, which you don't? In fact, you're doing the opposite from what I can tell. How can somebody get away with that? I mean, how can you just blatantly lie?
In my case, I don't think they will get away with it.
Yeah.
I don't believe they will. I'll continue to stand up for law enforcement community because it's the politically smart thing to do, but because it's the right thing to do. I rely, like everyone has in this community, on police all the time. And there are so many hardworking police officers, men and women, who do a job that so many of us couldn't or wouldn't do.
Agree. And I think the overwhelming majority of police officers are heroes who risk their life every day. I would say the same thing about firefighters and our brave men and women in uniform. Yes, I do call out bad policing when I see it, and we need to do that as a community. I think
there's bad actors in every industry.
Sure, 150%.
That deserve to be called out.
You know, the two campus police officers at UNLV that saved countless lives during that shooting. You know, I was the first person to talk about that, and I would love to be able to interview them. I interview former cops and firefighters every day, and what I try to do, and I'm sure you do the same, is when I see a police officer or officers at a restaurant, wherever, I go up to them, I shake their hand, and I say, thank you for what you guys do, because most of these people are very good people, and Kevin McMahill's one of them. I think that's really important. And yes, there are some, as you said, there's bad people in every profession. Certainly in politics, that's for sure. Okay,
not in radio, though.
No, of course not. No, that's definitely wrong. I talk about them every day, too. I have to ask you one Donald Trump question, man.
Sure.
I do. What do you make of the MAGA cult? What do you make of the last 5 or 6 years, in my opinion, how divided we are, and I think in part because of him? January 6th, attacks on our democracy where you have the leader of the Republican Party in this state that has been indicted by Ford and charged in this fake electorate scheme, allegedly with Jesse Law and others. I mean, these are unprecedented times we are living in when you have the leader of the party in this state that is facing very serious crimes. What do you make of this?
It's hard to explain. I think the something that I do recognize and I think is important for us to understand and to at least acknowledge is that half the country believes this stuff and follows this stuff.
Isn't that scary?
And it's heartbreaking and it's scary, but I think it's irresponsible too that we don't dive in deeper and try to understand what our fellow human. You mentioned the person at the grocery store who were they a lunatic? Well, I don't know if they were a lunatic, but they sure feel the way a lot of other people in this country and in the state and in the county feel. And so I think it's would be wise of us to explore that further, to better understand what our neighbor thinks and why. I obviously have passionate disagreeing. My feelings are as opposite as you can be, but that doesn't mean I'm going to disrespect other people, and they're entitled to their viewpoint.
You're a better man than I.
It's not easy, and if my mom's listening, she'll probably slap me on the head.
You're a better man than I. I try to call these people out that I think are dangerous.
That's responsible.
Well, perhaps, but I think one word that I use is brainwashed. I think the media does play a role, and I'm not saying every left-wing entity in the media is always right either.
Sure.
But I do believe people that watch OAN, that watch Newsmax and Fox News every day, they're brainwashed. The person who came up to you talking about the mask was probably brainwashed, and I think that's a danger.
There has to be a line somewhere, and if the line wasn't trying to overthrow a free and fair election, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, were you surprised that Mike McDonald and others were charged? Did you think that was going to happen?
Well, I don't know that I was surprised. I wouldn't say I was surprised. No.
Are you hopeful that this will happen? My understanding is it's going to happen after the 2024 elections, right? Do you think it should happen after the elections or before? Do you think it matters? Does it make a difference to you as long as justice is done?
I do. Well, justice does need to happen, and justice needs to happen on its own timeline that shouldn't be controlled by elections. Though I do think there are a lot of people who say at least that their minds would be changed if there were some felony not just indictments but convictions before the election. So I think it's incredibly consequential.
Yeah. You've been doing this for a while now, right? 14 years, right? You've kind of been in public life. Is that fair to say? What went through your mind on January 6th? Could you believe what we were watching on television? I mean, what went through your mind?
No, I couldn't believe it. As someone who worked for a member of Congress for as long as I did and know the terrain there pretty well, I just couldn't. I still can't fathom the acts that occurred on that day. And I think you said it at the beginning of this conversation, alluding to words having consequences.
Yeah.
And that's really the takeaway here. Words have consequences.
Right.
And when certain people say certain things, certain people are going to respond and react to those things. And I think it's just why we need to work hard to make sure that Mr. Trump isn't back in the White House again. Hopefully that's a motivator for people, but so should the agenda, the positive things that have come out of this administration. I look at transportation infrastructure alone, what Secretary Buttigieg has done locally for us, helping us finally. My whole life we've been talking about high-speed rail to Southern California. He is helping us make that happen, and President Biden is helping deliver. I have, yeah.
What was that like meeting him?
I'm an admirer of his because he comes from local government.
Yeah.
He understands that local government's where we get to deliver on a lot of the large objectives of the federal and state governments, and really rubber meets the road at the local level.
I think Pete Buttigieg could be a great president one day. Let me ask you what is a difficult question, and then maybe we'll take a break and we'll take some calls on the other side and maybe some local calls, ask you some local questions. I like Joe Biden as a person, okay? I think most people in America don't want to see Trump versus Biden for a lot of different reasons. I have mine. I'm going to vote for Biden in a heartbeat. I mean, and I would imagine you will as well, but do you want somebody younger in office? Do you think it's a fair criticism to say, man, we need younger people in office? Joe Biden, decent person, nice family. Bo was a hero, respect for his wife. but maybe a little bit too old for the job. What do you make it when people say that?
I was 16 years old when I was on the first campaign that I worked on.
Oh, wow.
And I always appreciated people who didn't judge me for my age, but rather what I was able to bring to the table. And equally, I think that's appropriate on the other end of the spectrum, that we not judge somebody for their age, but for what they're bringing to the table.
I think that's fair.
He's the president of the United States. He is the leader of the Democratic Party. He deserves and has the right to run for re-election. I frankly believe he's going to win. And I think he's going to do it not just because elections are finite choices between two candidates in this case, but because of his own record of delivering for the American people, and specifically here in Nevada and Clark County.
I think that's very fair. And I do tend to agree with you, even though, I'd prefer someone a little younger, but he's got my support. I'll tell you one thing he hasn't done in the last month or two. He hasn't said that you need ID to buy bread. He hasn't confused Nancy Pelosi with the person that he is running against, Nikki Haley. He hasn't confused countries in the last month or two. He hasn't said that Jeb Bush got us into the war in Iraq. He hasn't said that he defeated Barack Obama. These are all the things that Trump has said in the last 6 weeks.
Those are some of the least offensive things.
Right. Oh, if you want to talk about offensive stuff, don't even get me started with that. I mean, the stuff he said about John McCain and General Milley, and it's despicable. But we don't have to go down that road. I think we agree there. Why don't we do this, Michael? And I appreciate you joining us. If you're just joining us, Commissioner Michael Knapp, District A, is joining us in studio. I do want to take some phone calls when we get back.
Sure.
Number to call, 702-221-7283. Your chance to ask the commissioner a question. Local or national, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. We have one phone line open, I believe. If you want to jump in, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Voters want safe gun reform, ban military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks, and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign Bot Fun account and stay progressive.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your people's choice for City Council, with a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen. I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Wynn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well. So I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Wynn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Occupy Democrats Network. How many people we got watching live now, Numchuck? How many people we got? What's the number? 5,000? That's not too bad. Let's get it up to 10 by the end of the show. We appreciate it. It's a show that's ever growing in popularity, and we appreciate all of you. You could be listening on the FM/AM dial, on the Occupy Democrats Network, on Washington Press, and many other platforms. So thank you so much for joining us. Very happy to have Commissioner Michael Knapp, District A, joining us in studio, a Democrat who worked with our former governor, Steve Sisolak, among others. And it's a pleasure having Michael in studio. Michael, what do you say we take some phone calls?
Let's do it.
All right. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. The most interactive show certainly in Las Vegas. Let's go to Linda. Linda is first calling in. Hi, Linda. Thanks for calling. Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. It's Linda from New York.
New York.
Just wanted to let you know it's 76 and sunny here.
Oh, you're making me jealous, Linda. You're making me. Well, thank you for calling in, Linda. Michael's here in studio. What do you got for us today?
Okay, you're talking about other candidates. Now, I just got home from work, and I was CNN I watched, and Joe Lieberman is on there. And he's
Connecticut guy. Yep.
They're talking about, he's part of that no-label stuff. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about they're going to get together and pick a no-labels candidate. Now, do you think that they will pick like a normal Republican just to take votes away from Trump because they really don't want him in?
It's a good question. Michael, what do you think about that?
I don't know. I think, I would never tell anyone that less people running for office is a good thing. The more the merrier. But yeah. I couldn't tell you what Senator Lieberman's thinking.
Well, Linda, here's my opinion. We had former presidential candidate Yang on the show. Nice guy.
Right.
Really nice guy. I enjoyed talking to him. I met him in person. He'll come back on. With all due respect, this independent party is not going to work. They've tried it before. It's in a perfect world, it sounds great. It's not going to work. Okay, I say the two worst words in this country are Republican and Democrat because I think there are a lot of people, not you, Michael, but there's a lot
we needed a third party system, but that's not going to happen.
I understand, but I think too many people make decisions based on what party they're in rather than what's good for the country. And so right. I'm okay with it. It's just not going to work. And with all due respect to
right.
Joe Lieberman, who, by the way, I respect a great deal from my home state, Connecticut, he's a little too dry for me. Okay, that's just me. Joe's a nice guy. Okay, don't get me wrong. This independent party is not going to work. We're not going to have an independent.
I know it. I don't think they'll get a president, but do you think they're thinking that they won't get one, but they'll try to take votes away from?
That's
one
possible.
Or the other.
It's possible. And me and Michael we're talking about this a little bit off the air too. I mean, I personally think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to take votes away from Donald Trump. So I think
I'm surprised he didn't mention Joe Rogan as one of his on his short list.
Another complete clown, another complete clown and racist. Hey, Linda, it's really good to hear from you. Okay, you rest up now after work.
Okay.
All right, take
Enjoy
care.
That weather.
Take care, Linda.
Have a good day.
You too. I love hearing my New Yorkers. I love it. 702-221-7283. Commissioner Michael Knapp in studio. Let's go to Joseph. Joseph is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Joseph. You're on with Michael Knapp. Go ahead.
All right. Hey, Brian. All right. Here's my piece. Now, when I heard that video clip of Jesse Ventura, makes me think of back the old days. I used to watch pro wrestling, but him as governor, I figure not. I was thinking about people might want to vote for him, but for me, I'm in California, so I figure forget it. I mean, I used to watch, like I said, wrestling when I was a kid, but kind of gave up because most of them I knew retired or passed away. But having him as a running mate or a vice president for RFK makes me think, I don't think so.
Yeah, let me ask Michael. Michael, what do you make of a guy who's a former governor, by the way? Jesse Ventura was a former governor. What do you make of that guy maybe getting back into the political spectrum?
Well, I don't know how getting back to maybe into the campaign. I don't think like your caller, I don't think he's got much of a future in governance.
Yeah. When somebody like that, who is a former governor, says that he believes 9/11 was a, quote, inside job. Listen, I'm not a big George W. Bush supporter. I'm not. I never was. Condoleezza Rice, not a big fan. They made some mistakes, but I have never said that I believe George W. Bush was one of the people behind 9/11. I think that's a despicable statement to make in a conspiracy theory. Like, this is a guy who was a governor. These people get elected into office. I find that to be very strange. That's all. Very strange.
Strange and scary.
Yeah. But anyway, I appreciate the call, Joseph. Thank you so much, okay?
You got it.
You have a great day.
You got it.
Yeah.
You too.
Do we have Jesse Ventura on the line? Is that what you just said? My producer
What went down when Jesse the Body Ventura had Chico Santana over my head in the backbreaker, which
all right, that's
no one
enough.
gets
I can't listen to him anymore. I can't listen to Jesse Ventura. 7-0. I used to be a WWF fan, though, Michael.
Right?
But that was when I was like 10 years old. Yeah, I've grown up a little bit. Some would argue not a lot.
Too bad the former governor hasn't grown up.
Yeah, exactly. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Roy. Who do you want to go to? You want to go to Gary? Let's go to Gary. Gary is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Gary.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Commissioner.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. I just want to say thank you for having me back on this Occupy Democrats left-wing propaganda network.
Okay. Well, what have I said? What have I said?
Piano player.
Well, hold on, Gary. We're on with Michael now. I'd love you to ask him a question, but what have we said on this show that you would characterize as propaganda? Can you give me an example?
Well, all right. I was hoping you would ask me that.
Good, I did.
Because I want to ask the commissioner. I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure what the commissioner does. I would like to see some real action here with these tinted windows, so police are afraid to approach the car.
All right. Well, let's
and
start.
Maybe they'll get shot.
Let's ask. That's a legitimate question. Let's ask Michael that. Gary is concerned about these tinted windows where police officers approach a vehicle and they can't see what's happening in the vehicle. What are your thoughts on that, Michael? I think that's a very fair question.
Yeah, well, there are legal standards on window tint, at least here in the state, that they can't be so dark that you can't see through them on the front driver's side windshield and the passenger front window. And so I think what you're asking for is more enforcement of that. I probably agree that there isn't a lot of enforcement of it, but that's certainly within the right and jurisdiction of law enforcement to enforce if somebody is violating the state law.
Sure. There you go, Gary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wait, I have one more question.
Sure.
And one more comment.
Sure.
I would like a law passed that the sheriff by law has to do like a 1-hour radio show and take calls once a week here so people can get some feedback, because I have too many questions about too many things, including hot rod cars blowing my eardrums out. And they don't do nothing about it because they're
I don't think I'm going to...
We actually do a lot about that. If you're talking about street racing, we do a lot about it. We took a bill last legislative session on towing, and we're successful in the Nevada State Legislature, we being the county in partnership with the police department. And then I would also say, I don't know that you need a law to require a public servant to do anything with regularity like that, but you should know that almost everything that local government in particular does is through open meeting, right? So I'm the vice chair of the Metropolitan Police Department Fiscal Affairs Committee. We meet on routine basis. The sheriff appears there with his team, and every And any member of the public who wants to speak gets 6 minutes in total, 3 before the meeting, 3 after, to speak on issues related to the agenda or not. That's the same for, frankly, every body that I serve on, whether it's the county commission or the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority. Any member of the public has an opportunity to speak, and I'd encourage people to do that
Sure.
because it actually creates results.
Nothing more annoying when you're trying to sleep and you hear cars going by that are just so loud it wakes you up. That's so annoying. So I'm glad you guys are doing something about that. I think that's really important. Gary, I appreciate the phone call. Michael's a busy guy. I don't think we're going to do an hour a week. But next time he comes back on, hopefully he does, and you're welcome to call back. And he's also on social media. 702-221-7283. Again, that number, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Roy. Roy's next up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Roy.
Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Good.
I missed the beginning of the show today, but I did want to call in and just kind of update you on a couple of things.
Okay.
One, Peter Navarro's request to delay going to jail was denied. He's scheduled to go to jail next Tuesday for 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin Bragg, who's prosecuting Trump in New York for the hush money scandal,
Yes.
asked for a 30-day delay. He received 31,000 pages of new information.
Oh, my. That's a lot.
Another interesting. Yeah, that's a lot. Donald Trump came up with a new nickname for himself, and this is really an interesting one, Honest Don.
Michael, what do you think about that nickname? Is Donnie an honest guy? I don't know. I don't know if I'd
how honest the nickname is.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that nickname. But and I don't really know about any of his nicknames. What do you make of that, Michael, where if you have a guy that's a former president, he's been doing this for years now with derogatory nicknames for people like a petulant child. Is this where we are in politics now, where people seem to like that sort of thing?
It is where we are. I don't think it's where we are as a civilization and a people. I just refuse to believe that. Like you say, most people we interact with, no matter what their political leanings, they don't go around calling other people's names. It's not something we'd want for our children to do. If my daughter came home and started calling people names, she wouldn't get away with it.
Right. That's a responsible parent.
I don't know why that's acceptable for frankly, for anybody, but let alone anyone who's in a position of who should have respect and who has power.
Well,
and authority.
we all really know it should not be acceptable, but he's in a class by himself.
Well, you're right about that. You're right about that. The class of bigotry and disgusting behavior and probably criminality.
Catering,
as well. No, you're not going to get an argument from me.
So many of these people don't even know. The people who are supporting him probably don't even know who Victor Orban is.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy he met at Mar-a-Lago the other night, because they don't get their news from real news.
You're right about that. Roy, I appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much. What do you make of that, Michael, a guy that endorses being a dictator, really, and is against a democracy? I mean, you've spent a lot of your life in public life. I would imagine you care about our democracy. You want elections to be free and fair and all that stuff. But what do you make of that?
I think it's dangerous. I think all of this is also dangerous. In my role as Clark County Commissioner, we also have one of our departments that we oversee is the Clark County Elections Department, and it is very real that the people who hold our elections, I'm not talking about us or the head of even the registrar of elections, but people who work in that department should feel safe, and anything that undermines our election, conversation about undermining our election and disrespect towards the public servants who these are not high paid, these are not these are public servants who
good
are doing
people.
A really good job and are doing everything that they're supposed to do to the letter of the law. Whether you agree or not, it's to the letter of the law. You can talk about changing the law, but they follow what's on the books, and they are under attack, and it's
I
scary
agree.
and dangerous.
It is, and that's why Rudy Giuliani had to pay up, and what he did to those two women, horrible. Do you believe that, let's just talk about Nevada, that you should have an ID to vote?
I don't think it's necessary. I think we want to encourage as many people to vote lawfully as possible. I don't have any control over that. That goes through the state legislature. But I think making sure that we're creating a situation where we're reducing the barrier to entry, making sure that we have everything from polling locations that are accessible and easy to get to and spread out and diverse in geography and community is incredibly valuable, and just lowering the barrier to entry for as many people as possible. That's a good thing. I don't know why people fear more people voting.
Well, I can tell you why Republicans feel that way.
Well, they shouldn't. They should change their approach. They should try and appeal more to a broader audience, I suppose. But,
I agree.
But this country, it's the most incredible right that we have to select our leaders, and why you'd want to make that hard or difficult or impede that in any way is beyond me.
And the idea that some people will say, well, Joe Biden wants all these undocumented immigrants here so they can vote for him. Well, it's illegal for them to vote for the presidency. Last I checked.
It's illegal for them to vote. And frankly, the undocumented community has a hard enough time getting through their day. They're not looking to vote. That's not the top on their list.
The idea that
commit a federal crime by
I agree.
voting illegally.
The idea that these families and these people crossing the border, risking their lives in some cases, boy, I'm going to risk my life, me and my family, so I can vote for that guy, Joe Biden, is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, number one. It makes no sense. Do you think we'll ever get to a point where we'll just be voting online or on our phones and people won't be going in person to vote? Like, do you think we're going to get to that point?
I don't know. I think there is something pretty special about actually. I'm still old-fashioned in that way.
I agree.
I think
I like it. The curtain behind me, closing the curtain behind me, and I kind of like that.
I think it's a pretty special part of our democracy.
I tend to agree with you. A couple more minutes here with Michael Knapp. Let's take another call. Again, that number 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Fernando. Fernando's next. What's up, Fernando?
Hey guys, good Q&A. I want to get you guys' opinions on Metro being held liable for hiding records to the public. They had to pay $600,000 of our tax money. How do you guys feel about those issues?
Yeah,
Metro hiding records from the public.
Well, let's let Michael talk about that. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, I had to vote on those settlements on the Fiscal Affairs Committee, and trust me, there's nothing more aggravating than having to do that. I think that Metro is, and frankly, this isn't, we hear about it a lot from the police department. Public agencies of all kinds are going through this. The county proper, the cities are all going through this, where we've got to change the way that we provide public information. Everything we do, I can tell you my calendar is routinely turned over to the public. Every email and text message is routinely requested and turned over to the public, because there is a 100% transparency. There ought to be. I do think there are circumstances where the details of the case matter. And I believe that in at least one of those two cases that you've referenced, there was a genuine concern for human life. And that's what I think delayed the requested records from fully being released. And of course,
they've been hiding records for years.
Well, I know you
They've
just
been hiding
referenced
years,
those specific two cases, so that's what I wanted to respond to. I'm not saying that they've never.
Okay, now on the bridges, did you vote yes or no on the ban on the Las Vegas bridges, the flow zone?
It was unanimous. I voted for it.
Okay, I hope the ACLU wins, because this is America. Read the Constitution, read your Bill of Rights. RFK told me that a long time ago.
And read the ordinance that I voted for, and you might understand it.
But hold on, to be fair, do you know what ordinance that he voted for, Fernando?
The ban on the bridges.
He's referencing the pedestrian flow zone.
You're talking about the pedestrian flow zone, which Fernando, I tend to agree with you on, but I don't think that's what Michael voted on. Michael, is that the same bill? Okay, so here's
if you do a crime, you get arrested.
Okay,
if you don't do a crime,
all right,
you don't get arrested.
Okay, so let's talk about that. There are people, and this started with F1. This whole thing started.
No,
it did not.
It did not. No,
Okay,
I could see why
it seemed like it blew up with
the
F1.
timing is questionable. But no, we first had a hearing. First had a hearing on this several years ago. That's right, as the caller said. And frankly, the Las Vegas Strip, whether you like it or not, is the economic engine of this entire state.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation we're in right now, and you could disagree with it if you want to, but there is a lot happening in the public right of way that is dangerous. And there needed to be an ability for the police department to ensure that people can get across the bridge without it being hampered. This is not the same as an at-grade crosswalk. Or a sidewalk, more specifically. I'm sorry, it is the same as an at-grade crosswalk.
So explain
it's
this
not
to
the
me.
same as a sidewalk.
Explain this to me, though,
so
Mike.
It's
So
basically treating it as a crosswalk.
So if I'm with my family, whatever, and I'm on a bridge and I want to take some pictures, I can't stop for a minute or two and take some pictures?
Of course, the intention is to allow you to, is not to hamper your ability to stop. That's, of course, the extreme that it's being taken in.
Mm-hmm.
The goal is that you can't set up shop on the bridge and impede traffic.
Gotcha.
There's real life consequences. It wasn't that long ago that we had a huge sound at the MGM Grand that caused thousands of people to run and scramble.
That was during
And
the World
fact
Series
that
of Poker. I interviewed people that were hurt.
and,
yeah.
and that was a scary situation. And the only way to leave certain parts of that geographic area is by going across pedestrian bridges.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool that the police department asked for and I believe needed, and making sure that it's not enforced inappropriately,
Yeah.
of course, is going to be a priority for everybody involved.
Yeah,
This cannot be abused.
Sure.
completely
Fair
agree.
balance. I think there needs to be a fair balance. Fernando, I do appreciate your phone call. Thank you very much. Good question, because that's kind of, I don't know if I want to use the term controversy, but there's people that agree with it. There's people that disagree with it. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Again, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Mike. Mike is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, Mike.
Hello, gentlemen. I have a couple of questions, and I'll try to keep it concise and brief. I want to go to the political sphere for a moment and the medical sphere. I've been a cardiopulmonary therapist since 1986. And I laugh at the people who come on and say the COVID was garbage, it was a hoax, the vaccine don't work, etc. Now, in my line of work, I run life-saving equipment.
Okay, Michael, hang on one second. It sounds like you're in a tunnel. Is there any way we can hear you a little bit more clearer? It sounds like you're, I don't know. Let's try this again. It's
all right, is this any better?
That's 100% better. Holy smokes. Okay,
Outstanding.
go right ahead, Michael. Continue.
Okay. Well, what I was saying was the people who have criticized the vaccine and the illness, I often wonder, where do they get their medical license from? Because I have seen so many people die, and I've always stated, if you care to walk 72 hours in my shoes, come to the emergency room, don't wear a mask, and see what happens. But do me a favor, when you get sick, stay home.
Yeah. I'll let Michael, what do you have to say about that?
I don't think. Clearly they don't have a medical background like you do. So,
Right.
And by the way, thank you for your service for the
you're
for the last couple years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. No, I'm with you,
Well,
Michael. I'm with you.
And the problem that bothers me a lot about this, and I have 2 grandchildren now, and what I'm seeing are, unfortunately not my children, but parents who are not getting their kids vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
The rise of TB, mumps, measles, and whooping cough has skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
When are people going to wake up and learn that, hey, we were not doing this as a cure-all, it's a preventative.
Yeah.
It's a preventative from having you and your family die.
Amen.
And it
You're
works.
right. You're right. No, you're right, and it did work. That's a really, really good point, Mike. And I want to echo what Michael Knapp said. Thank you for what you do. We need more people like you out there, and I appreciate your phone call, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
you have a good one.
You too. Yeah, he's absolutely right. And precautionary measures are important. So before we let you go, and I really do appreciate you being here, Michael, you're running for re-election, right?
Yes.
You're running for re-election. I know you're proud of a lot of things you've done, and rightfully so. Let's talk about that before we let you go.
Sure.
Some of the things that you've been able to accomplish that maybe you're most proud of, and why people should re-elect you.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
There's a couple things. I am awfully proud of some of the accomplishments we've had over the last couple of years on the Clark County and the commission. And at the top of the list is the work that we talked about. Some of the things that I've been able to move forward with my colleagues when it comes to traffic safety that I know will have long-term impacts for the better. Things like mandating detached sidewalks on 60-foot roadways that I know that will save lives in the future. Things like crossing guards at middle schools, things like locating an Office of Traffic Safety for municipality in the United States to do that within the county level. And then things like I had a humane pet store ordinance, which was we're the biggest jurisdiction in the state to adopt it, and really making a difference in the animal welfare community. And also, even going back the first couple weeks I was on the county commission, started working with the NSPCA, and they now are thriving under a new board and leadership and entirely new space that they have, and doing really well. So there's a lot I'm proud of. Mostly on top of that list is I think I've been able to continue to be accessible. Everyone has my cell phone number who lives or works in my district, and just making sure that public service is about the public, and making sure that whether someone has a problem with a pothole or whether they have a problem with police, that we're there to help them.
Sure.
No matter big or small, it's big to them, and that's what we want to be there for.
Well, you got my vote. You're not paying me to say that, like so many other people on the air need to be paid. I'll endorse you if you give me 10 grand. No, that's not what I do here on the show. People advertise with me, but I don't endorse people for money. And you got my vote. You're a good guy. You've done a lot of good things in Clark County. And for the record, you're also not for defunding the police. I want to make that. I want to make that very, very clear. And you don't think Donald Trump stole the 2016 election, so that's a breath of fresh air as well. No attacks on our
those I could believe
yes.
those two things.
Yes,
How about that?
yes. Thank God, a normal human being that I'm talking to that's educated and intelligent and fair. Well, I do appreciate you being here, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank
Website?
you.
Do you have a website people can go to?
MichaelNaft.com or at MichaelNaft on X or Instagram.
Everywhere. I love it. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here. Pleasure meeting you. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. And by the way, thank you for the service you're doing,
Sure.
allowing me to and so many others to have
Absolutely.
a voice. Is so
Republican
valuable.
or Democrat, I
That's
always
right.
invite people in. It doesn't mean I'm always going to agree with them,
Sure.
but we're always able to have good conversations like this one, and I appreciate you being here. All right, we'll take a quick break, and we will be back after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
My name is Hunter Kane, and I'm talking with you for a call to action for our veterans in Clark County. Who is Hunter Kane? Well, I'm a decorated combat veteran community leader, and candidate for Clark County Commission. Do you know no veteran has served on the commission in nearly 30 years, which is why our veteran homelessness, unemployment, and suicide rates are out of control. So here's the call to action. June 11th, vote veteran, vote Kane for Clark County. Let's rally behind someone who's been in the trenches, who knows the sacrifices, and who's committed to making a real difference. Join the campaign by searching Elect Hunter Kane on social media, or go to www.electhunterkane.com.
Did you know that 99% of air conditioning issues start with airflow issues? Well, guess what? Pioneer Air has your back. They've been operating for 20 years in the industry within the Las Vegas area, large enough to handle all your air conditioning and heating needs, but small enough to know your first name. Pioneer Air focuses on preventative care, much like wellness checks for humans. They believe in wellness checks for air conditioning and heating systems to extend the life of the system you own. So what are you waiting for? Schedule your wellness check with Pioneer Air today. The number to call is 702-831-4840. Here's the best news. Mention this ad and you'll receive 10% off. Call Pioneer Air today. 702-831-4840. That number again, 702-831-4840.
Residents of Las Vegas Ward 5, are you ready for a brighter future? I would like to introduce myself, Dr. Erica Smith, your people's choice for City Council. With a vision for progress and the fortitude to make it happen, I am committed to moving us forward. I am not just a candidate, I am a fighter for you. With myself on the City Council, you can expect a real change and a community that thrives. Vote for Dr. Erica Smith, because together we're building a better tomorrow. To learn more about me and my campaign, go to www.ericaforlasvegas.com, paid for by the Vote Dr. Smith Committee.
Who would have thought there'd be so many kids playing ice hockey in the desert? Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, founded by Gina Yusufzai 8 years ago, made it possible for families who can't afford the equipment and fees. Donate today at www.hockeyforkids.org and help us continue making a difference. Join us in supporting Jake Helb's Hockey Foundation and the Las Vegas Ice Warriors, where every kid gets a shot at the starting line. Just a reminder, our website is www.hockeyforkids.org.
Voters want safe gun reform, Banned military assault weapons, including AR-15s, have universal background checks and red flag laws. I am Eva Chase, a candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 16, U.S. Air Force veteran, college graduate, progressive independent candidate, fully transitioned transgender woman, former lieutenant governor candidate for Nevada in 2022, where I received 7,212 votes in the Democratic primary. Follow me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. Donate to my campaign bot fun account and stay progressive.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all of you. It's so funny because we're just talking off the air about, you know, all the fans of the show and how the show's growing every day and everything. And there are some people that are obsessed with me. Like, there are some people that, and that's fine. If they listen to the show and they're obsessed with me and they talk smack on social media and all that stuff. I'm used to that. I've been getting that for years and years and years. But I do find it interesting when people do their own shows and they can't come up with material, so they use my material and they just talk about me. I don't know. You know who you are out there, but we do laugh about it at the radio station from time to time. There are, I think there's a word for that. I think we call those people trolls, and we'll leave it at that. But anyway, welcome back to the show. Having Michael Naft in studio was cool. The first time I ever met Michael, and great guy. He certainly has my support, and I like what he's doing here in Clark County. Those of you that are watching on the Occupy Democrats Network, you could be watching on my Facebook page, on the Occupy Facebook page, on the Occupy X page, on the FM AM dial. We're on Twitch, we're on TikTok, we're everywhere. And the show is continuing to grow on a daily basis, and I'm very appreciative for all of you. And I'm also appreciative to the people here at KSHP, and of course my wonderful guests who come in. And this guest is certainly no exception to that. There's a lot of, how should I use this term? Bigotry, hatred towards the transgender community. The lady we have with us in studio right now has had to deal with that over the course of her life. She is running for office, and her name is Eva Chase. She got 7,000 votes last time she ran when she put her name in the hat, nobody knew who she was. She did this show a few times. 7,000 people said, I want you as my next assemblywoman, you know, my next commissioner, whatever the case may be. And Eva Chase joins us in studio now. Eva, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Hi, Brian. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. It's really great to see you. And I'll tell you, I wish I could get 7,000 people that would vote for me. I don't know. I think I'd get 7,000 people that don't want to vote for me, but that's a cool accomplishment that you had. I talk about social issues all the time on this show. Could be about transgenders, could be about, you know, a different sexuality or race. You know, when people ask me, you know, they say, Brian, you're an independent. I say, yeah, but I lean to the left on virtually every social issue, the transgender community being one of them, you know. And this is a question that I never asked you before. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I think is a snake, I'll be nice and call him a snake. I think we'd agree on that. When talking about transgenders, he said that he believes that every transgender has mental illness. And I'm like, I think he has mental illness. But when somebody makes a statement like that, which obviously I disagree with, as a transgender woman, what goes through your mind when you hear somebody talk like that?
People that talk like that are very much misinformed, and they don't take the time to learn the facts. And the facts are simple. People make a choice. Yes, we may be born a certain way, but there's something inside someone that they want to be something they really are on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And the human spirit, a human is what we are on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
This body is simply a shell.
Right.
So if you view yourself as a woman on the inside in a man's body, you can take care of it if you choose to. Mm-hmm. Or you could be like some of the old-time Hollywood movie stars like Montgomery Clift, who lived in total agony and despair because he was a gay man in old Hollywood and would have been disbarred. Look at Rock Hudson.
Right.
A lot of famous people, not just Hollywood actors, but famous people that had to hide who they truly were.
How sad is that?
It's terrible that people can't be truly who they are.
Liberace?
Yes, Liberace's another fine example, yes.
Somebody that was gay, but kind of for most of his life kept that private. And I say to myself how sad that is. And that was, many years ago, but still, there are still people in 2024 that keep their sexuality private. Now, listen, they can do that. That's their right if they feel more. But I think in some cases it's sad because a lot of these people are afraid. They're afraid that if they come out as who they really are, which there's nothing wrong with, that there's going to be people out there that are going to judge them, right? And you've been judged, and I think that's wrong.
I get judged virtually every day, and there's always one or two people who use the wrong pronoun with me. And every now and then I just let it roll off like rain. But sometimes I say, excuse you, I am not a he, I am a she.
So I had a situation like that. You tell me if you think I handled it right. I was at Mr. Yang, who ran for president. He has this now independent group, the Forward Party, and I'm at one of his events. And I saw somebody that I would assume was transgender, a transgender woman, which I found out, and I called her him. And I said, "Pleasure to meet you, sir." Looked at me and said, "She." And I responded by saying, "I'm so sorry. It wasn't intentional. I didn't do it on purpose."
Yeah.
But it made me feel bad because I'm like, "Oh shoot, I didn't mean to."
Yeah.
And I will, I want to be respectful,
Sure.
and I felt bad, right?
Yeah.
But I also know that I didn't do it on purpose, right? So I think there's two different types of people, right? There's one type of person that's, I would assume like me, that, maybe unintentionally might say something like that.
Yes.
And then there's the other person that does it on purpose to be rude, right? There's two, right? Is that fair to say?
Totally. I get
Yeah.
it every day,
Right.
whether I'm at work, whether I'm walking down the street, whether I'm at the grocery store, whether I'm at a ball game. I can always tell when someone is generally sorry for what they've said. And there's other ones, they're just flat out being mean.
Why? Why do you think people just want to be mean in general? We're not talking about children here. We're not talking about elementary school kids. Okay, we're talking about adults. Adults that might not agree with your lifestyle. Adults that might not, whatever. But why do you think they find it necessary to go out of their way to quote unquote be mean, like you said?
Some people are dissatisfied with their own lives. So they have to display and displace their own personal frustration on other people who they may never have met. And they want to bring them down to their level.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is to ignore it. That way you do not encourage that negative behavior. And sometimes you got to treat them like a little kid because that's what they're acting like.
Do you agree with me that, the Joe Biden administration, they've been very LGBT friendly, very transgender friendly, and are you worried that in a Trump administration, if he wins in November, which I would imagine both of us hope doesn't happen, that some that would be threatened, besides I think everybody in this country that care about democracy, would be those in the transgender community?
Oh, definitely. Because if you look what's going on now in the red states, sorry, Republicans, I call it like I see it. In red states, Republicans are severely restricting trans rights, anywhere from going to the bathroom of their choice, getting their treatments, anything, everything, they are doing it. And so therefore, it's only going to get worse if Trump gets in the White House because he is very anti-trans. And that's just going to feed more fire, more fuel to the fire that Republicans are already doing.
I agree with you, Eva. And, Republicans, at least from what I hear, preach they don't want government to get involved. They love freedom. They want you. But yet, on the other hand, They attack people that might not be like them. They attack your sexuality. They attack you if you're transgender. They think drag queens are the biggest threat to our children, which is probably the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Yet they don't want to talk about, in my personal opinion, and I want to get into some other topics with you, the real issues facing the American people, not just here in Las Vegas, but across the country.
Sure.
Gun violence.
Oh, yes.
Health care, right?
Yes.
You know, taxes, for example, just to name a couple things.
Of course.
I don't really hear them, you know, they'll talk about Obamacare, how it's the worst thing in the world, but yet they have no replacement plan for it. If they ever do talk about gun violence, besides thoughts and prayers, they'll make the case that more guns make us safer, which is idiotic and proven to be not true. They want to take away a woman's right to choose. Many Republicans, if they had their way, would do that. These are the most important issues, not transgenders. These are the most important issues facing the American people. Most Americans want you to live your life, do what you want to do, and be you. Just don't break the law, which clearly you're doing. And I feel that same way. What do you make of some of those other issues that I talked about, which is, you know, healthcare, gun control, that, you know, inflation, you know, that sort of stuff?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I'll just talk about, there's a whole bunch, but I'm just going to pick out 3 or 4.
Sure.
First of all, let's talk about gun violence for a minute.
Sure.
There are over 400 million guns in this country. And as you have mentioned before, the AR-15 is usually the weapon of choice in mass shootings. So therefore, back in 2004, AR-15s made up 2% of the total gun sales in the country. Now they make 25%. That's 1 out of every 4 gun sold is an AR-15. Now, who needs an AR-15? Nobody. Just buy a regular shotgun or a 30-06, a regular gun. My idea is very simple. I, first of all, would have universal background checks, and I have red flag laws, and I would push for a ban of military assault weapons across the board here in Nevada. Now, whether it get through the assembly, I don't know, but that's my stance on it. That's how you make schools safer, not more guns. Now, on the subject of health care, abortion is health care. And I know people say, oh, that's a naughty word, don't say abortion. But when you hear about after the Dobbs decision and the Roe versus Wade, which Trump took credit for getting rid of, and Republicans had all these laws all ready to go into effect as soon as Roe was overturned. Disaster in every red state, every Republican state, it's virtually impossible to get an abortion, even in case of rape, incest, or unviable fetus. So therefore, I believe here in Nevada, we need to have a constitutional amendment making abortion part of the Constitution. It has been legal in Nevada since 1990. But with a Republican governor, and God help us if we get a Republican legislature, abortion could be in big trouble in our state. So I would push for a constitutional amendment, having it be put on a ballot for an initiative that would have it become part of our Constitution in our state.
I think I'd be okay with that. When I talk to Republicans about this, they say, "Oh, Brian, that's not going to happen. You know, it's a vote, and it's going to be up to the people. It should be up to the people in every state." Maybe I just don't trust some people. I don't know, but I know that the overwhelming majority of Republicans and Democrats across the country believe in a woman's right to choose. I think it's anywhere between 60 to 65% of Americans, both Republicans and Democrats, and the Republicans wonder why they keep losing the popular vote in 6 of the last 7 presidential elections. Well, this is one of the biggest issues. I think for most, especially women, it's the second biggest issue. Now, the first issue that most Americans are concerned about is the border.
Oh, yes.
I do believe it is a crisis.
Yes,
do I blame it all on Joe Biden? No, I don't. What do you make of the border crisis?
I think that Republicans are passing the buck because there was a great bipartisan bill put together in the Senate. I believe it was James Langford, a very conservative, right-wing, a very conservative senator from Oklahoma. And I think it might have been Chris Murphy, I think. But these two senators came up with a very restrictive, the most restrictive border bill in the last 30 or 40 years. And there was nothing in it for progressives, which I am, and there was nothing in it for the dreamers.
Right.
It pretty much said Joe Biden could close the border if he wanted to. And there was more border agents, there would be more border judges, and it was going to go through. And then good old orange-haired man himself said, don't vote for the bill.
Yeah.
Right? So what Republicans do, they shut it down in the House when MAGA Mike Johnson from Louisiana, who is an election denier, said, yes, sir, Mr. Trump, we won't vote on it. Now Republicans are saying that there's a crisis at the border. The answer's there to be fixed, but they won't vote on it because it makes Trump, he doesn't have an issue to run on.
Right.
So therefore, Republicans, I believe, they need to get that, they need to work with Democrats to get that bill passed.
Agree. You know, it seems like so many of these Republicans will complain about something, but either they have no solution for it or they want to make Joe Biden look bad. I don't know if you remember, Eva, the baby formula shortage that we had in this country.
Yes.
And yeah, it was an emergency.
Yes, it
and
was.
So what did Joe Biden and the Democrats do? They put forth a bill that would have allocated funds to immediately put baby formula on the shelves. What did Republicans do? They voted against it.
Yes.
We talk about free health care for our brave men and women in uniform. For years and years, Joe Biden and the Democrats tried to put forth legislation to give, especially the ones that were affected with burn pits.
Yes.
And they voted against it until Jon Stewart raised his voice with Joe Biden, and they figured it out and convinced some Republicans to vote for it. You know, again, I don't like to call many of these people pro-life. They're anti-abortion. But then when it comes to maternity leave and things of that nature, Republicans vote against it. So it's like, I get really tired when I hear Republicans concerned or complaining, for lack of a better term, of some of the issues facing this country when they'll listen to anything that Donald Trump says, and they don't want this country to succeed, and they don't want Joe Biden to succeed, and they want people to suffer. Example, even the student loan debt bill, right? Now, I was all for that, right? And a lot of Republicans, well, I had to pay my fair share, so you have to as well. I suffered, so you have to suffer. Meanwhile, these are some of the same people that took their PPE loans and didn't have to pay those back. They're the biggest hypocrites to me in the world.
You're exactly right. When you talk about that student loan situation, this is something I talk about all the time when I'm doing my social media campaigning. I have a great plan to address student loan situations. I believe that students should get some type of a debt reduction and in some cases even debt forgiveness. But that might be on a case-to-case basis. But there needs to be, like what President Biden tried to do and it got shot down in the courts, there needs to be definitely student loan debt reduction. I work with a lot of 20-somethings where I work at Shark Reef Aquarium. A lot of them are UNLV students. To all my friends at the reef, how you doing out there? I'll see you when I see you. But they pay their college. Now, I paid for my own college.
Right.
But I did get a loan from the college, and I had to pay that back. And it was a small amount, maybe $1,000 or so, but that's not the point. We live in a world now where 4-year universities cost an arm and a leg and also another leg.
Yes.
And now some of these students are coming out of college. They have a bachelor's or they have a, say they have a bachelor's in chemistry or whatever it may be, and they're looking at $60,000, $80,000 in student debt. How can they buy a home? How can they have a family? They can't because they're that much in debt as soon as they come out of college. We need to help them out, and that's my plan. When I get to the state assembly, I will push for student debt relief in some form.
College tuition is ridiculous.
Yes, it is.
It is absurd. And just because you have a college degree, by the way, is not a guarantee that you're going to get the job that you want either. I'm all for people getting a quality education. I'm not saying that I'm against it. But some of the most successful people, like the Bill Gateses of the world, people like that, the Mark Cuban did go to college, but some of these people didn't even go to college. Do you need a college degree to be successful? No. Does it help? Sure, it could help. But I felt like I could have done radio. Well, I did do radio when I was in college. I did college radio, but there weren't a lot of classes that I really, truly enjoyed. I liked the public speaking classes.
Yes.
I took some, I minored in art history. I like to learn about that. I did take some classes that I enjoyed, but the majority of classes I didn't have to take. And I don't like it. I don't, listen, in high school, people should have to take the courses that are provided. But I feel like when you're paying to get an education, you should only take the classes that you want to get your degree. You shouldn't have to take certain other classes that are not in the field that you want to be when you grow up. Does that make or when you get a job? Does that make sense? I mean, I don't think like you should be forced to take other classes when you don't want to take those classes. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh, totally. I think that if you're trying to get a degree, say, in graphic arts, you need to have as many graphic arts classes as possible. Why do you have to have geometry? Or why do you have to have algebra?
Right.
You're a graphic arts major. You're a music major or something.
Right.
You don't need to have all that other stuff.
You don't. And I think that it's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of time. And I think it's wrong. But that being said, I will also say that I don't think that politics, particularly a professor's personal political views, should ever be in the classroom. I don't know how you feel about that. What are your thoughts on that?
There should be a separation from a college professor telling their students their views on a particular candidate or an issue. That's up to the students to decide on their own through their own research and their approach to how they pick a candidate to vote for. A professor can be very influential. And so if you have one that leans one way or the other, no, I don't think they should be. They should just be teaching their course and helping their students the best they can to learn and have good grades.
So, Eva, I haven't really opened up the phone lines. I haven't really given out the number here, but there are some people that do want to speak with you. So I will. We have a few minutes here, so I will try to squeeze in a call or two if I can. 702-221-7283, 702-221-SAVE. Let's go to Nelson. Nelson's up on Pushing Limits. Hi, Nelson.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Nelson.
Hello. Is the topic focused on this, or can callers go in any direction they want?
Well, we're definitely focused on the topics that we've been talking about this segment, if that's okay.
And I just tuned in. What's the topic, real quickly?
The topic is, do me a huge favor, Nelson. I would love you to call back tomorrow. But if you're listening to the show, try to know what topic we're talking about before you call in, with all due respect, and you're welcome to do so. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No need to apologize, Nelson. I appreciate you calling in, and please call back tomorrow. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. That's a first for me. I don't think I've ever had anybody call in that said, what are you guys talking about? But that's okay. That's all right. Let's go to Cynthia. Cynthia's next on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Cynthia.
That's a first for me. Hold on just a sec. I've got to turn my screen
Yes,
down.
turn that down because there's a little delay. Go ahead, Cynthia.
There we go. Hi, how are you today?
Hi.
I just wanted to say hi. I identify as a transgender male, and I admire you for transitioning. Mostly, I just wanted to say Happy Pi Day. It is 3.14 today.
Yes, Happy Pi Day.
Yes. Happy Pi Day, yes.
Well, I love the fact that you would call in, Cynthia, as a transgender woman and support Eva. I think that's awesome. And we need more people like you out there. And we need strong voices. And we cannot accept or allow bigotry from the far right to be involved in any sort of political discourse or in any event, in any type of discourse. And I'm sure you both agree with that. And I try to do that every day.
Yes, and thank you so much. I really enjoy your show, and have a great day.
Thank you, Cynthia. That really means a lot.
Thank
Eva,
you, Cynthia.
how do people learn more about you? Besides listening to this show, where do people go to make a donation and learn more about your run for office?
You can contact me on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and my brand new Ballotpedia profile that I set up after I filed to be a candidate last week. You can donate to my Spot Fund campaign account, and you just go to Eva Chase Spot Fund, and I pop up, and there I am. And
I love it.
I'm just so thankful that people do want to call in. They're interested. And I'm always thankful to be with you, Brian. You're a great host.
Of course, I appreciate
and
that.
I love get a chance to talk about the
Yes.
issues. And before we go, everybody, just remember, Eva Chase is the choice for District 16 for 2024 in the State Assembly. And remember, the primary is June 11th.
Coming up right around the corner, and Eva certainly has my support. Please check her out and go to her social media platforms. And I appreciate Eva being here as always. She'll be back again very soon. And tomorrow on the program, we have an author. His name is Brad Bowman, and he's making the case of how dangerous it is for people to even discuss Joe Biden and his age, and the fact that Republicans out there say he's in the bunker and all that. It's going to be an interesting talk with Brad Bowman tomorrow, so you're certainly going to want to stick around for that. And we have a lovely lady coming in studio tomorrow who runs a charitable organization helping people getting underprivileged kids get involved with hockey. So it's really a cool story. So tomorrow's going to be a fun show. I'm going to watch some college basketball, watch my Runnin' Rebels play. Thanks for joining us, everybody. And thank you for Eva Chase and Michael for coming in, student Michael Naft. We'll see you tomorrow.